Discover the miraculous origins of the Canaanites and the shocking gods they worshipped. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, when the land of Canaan was steeped in the fervor of idolatry and the worship of false gods, a young Canaanite named Oren began to feel a rumble of discontent within his heart. The cities of Jericho and Ai brimmed with the sounds of rituals dedicated to Baal and Asherah, their fervent songs a cacophony of fervor that masked an unsettling undercurrent of emptiness. Oren, an apprentice stonemason, was steeped in the customs of his people, yet he wrestled with an unsettling yearning for something greater. The shadowy deities his family revered failed to satiate the deeper longing of his soul. As the sun dipped below the horizon on a particularly calm evening, Oren overheard a conversation among merchants about a wandering Hebrew named Abraham. Whispers of promises from a singular God echoed in his ears. This God, they said, spoke of blessings and nations yet to come. Ever curious, Oren felt the stirrings of hope within him. It drew him towards the camp of this Abraham, nestled serenely under the vast expanse of starlit skies, away from the opulence of Jericho's temples. The land was rich, filled with opportunities of prosperity gained through the sacrifices demanded by Baal. Oren's family reveled in the decadence of their affluence at feasts thrumming with the sweet incense offered to Asherah. Yet amidst the gaiety, Oren sensed a haunting emptiness beneath their celebrations, a flicker of truth that whispered the practices lacked true peace or divinity. The night's air around the camp of Abraham felt different, thicker with expectation and light. As he approached the encampment, Oren was met with a crowd gathered around the fire, entranced by Abraham's words of a covenant made by the Almighty. Hope coursed through the air as the very essence of heaven felt palpable. Abraham spoke of promises, land for his descendants and blessings upon all the nations. The night sky, speckled with stars, reminded Oren of the vastness of possibilities. But a shadow of fear loomed over him. Could he truly turn his back on the traditions that had established his family's status? In the heart of the camp, laughter rang out, echoing joy that felt more profound than the hollow jubilance of his own people. Yet the thought of abandoning his forefathers' gods left him trembling. Would he sacrifice family loyalty and comfort for the enigmatic promises of this God? The conflict ultimatum that pressed upon his spirit intensified. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As night fell, Oren stood at the brink of decision. The warmth of the campfire illuminated the faces of those who believed in the God of Abraham. He felt, for the first time, the understanding of true community, of belonging not just to a legacy of idols, but to a promise that rippled through generations. Oren's heart quaked with the thought of declaring this God before his own. The bravery it required loomed larger than any idols offering false security. Within the sanctuary of flickering shadows, Oren's choice stood poised before him. Would he embrace the faith of Abraham and step into the burgeoning light, or return to the idols and darkness from whence he came? The divine echo of destiny loomed over his spirit, beckoning him toward the uncharted path of faithfulness. The stars above shone brightly as Oren drew closer to the encircled campfire, drawn by an inexplicable urge. It was as if the cosmos conspired to illuminate his internal struggle. Abraham's voice rose above the crackling flames, saturated with faith and conviction, filling the night with the essence of hope. Suddenly, a sense of belonging enveloped him, a stark contrast to the hollow reveries of his homeland. "Fear not, for I am your shield, your very great reward," Abraham proclaimed, his eyes gleaming with the holy light of promise. At these words, Oren's heart fluttered with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The tales of his ancestors, of Baal's fickle favor and Asherah's cruel demands, faded into memory against the stark reverence of what this God offered. The depth of Abraham's faith resonated in Oren's core. He yearned for that unyielding assurance that had eluded him amidst the idols of Canaan. As the warmth from the fire enveloped him, Oren dared to step forward, glancing over his shoulder at the distant city, the place he had always known as home. The festivities of Jericho continued, a den of revelry, yet each joyous note sounded like a dirge to his now awakened spirit. He grappled with the desire to embrace this faith against the chain of tradition that bound him. "What must I do to follow your God?" he whispered, his voice trembling, drowned in the nighttime chorus of crickets and distant laughter. The question hung heavy in the air, pregnant with the weight of decision. Among the throng, a woman approached. Her name was Mila, known for her steadfastness and wisdom. "Your heart seeks truth, young one," she said, her voice like a balm to his restless soul. "With faith in this God, there will come trials and tribulations, yet his promise abides. To follow him is to choose the path of righteousness and redemption." Oren's gaze locked onto hers, filled with the flickering hope and love of community. Her words echoed in him. Could he really step away from the comfort of familiarity and into the unknown? What awaited him if he surrendered to the God of a wandering shepherd? "Consider this," Mila continued, "the heritage of your forefathers is but dust. The covenant of Abraham promises life, not just for yourself, but for your future generations. The blessings are far greater than mere tradition." As Oren contemplated her fervent words, the air around him shimmered with divine potential. A flicker of faith ignited within him. What if he truly believed? What if in the depths of his being, he chose to trust? Suddenly, a hush overcame the camp, as if the very heavens paused. The gentle rustle of leaves carried a whisper, and Oren sensed the presence of the Almighty, stirring within him. The eternal echoed a profound truth that even now began to intertwine with human history. With a tightness in his chest and tears brimming in his eyes, Oren knelt by the fire, his heart racing with the weight of commitment. "I choose to follow this God. Let his covenant be my own." As he uttered these words, the stars seemed to twinkle in approval, a sign of God's affirmation. At that moment, a rustle swept through the camp, the air thick with expectancy. The earth trembled slightly as a distant rumble echoed. Was it the sound of thunder, or a reminder of something greater yet to come? The atmosphere crackled with divine intention, and the shadows danced, eager to witness faith reborn. Little did Oren know that this decision was not merely his own, but part of an intricate tapestry woven into God's sovereign plan, a plan that would alter the course of nations and generations yet unborn. For as it was written, "In you all the families of the earth will be blessed." The journey of promise had truly begun. As the air lingered with divine anticipation, Abraham stood in awe, sensing a clear shift in the heavens of promise unfolding. He turned to his gathered clan, his voice trembling with fervor. "Look! Behold the stars above. Count them, if thou art able. So shall thy descendants be, Oren. For the Lord has chosen thee." Oren, still kneeling by the fire, felt the weight of those words envelop him, transforming him from a humble seeker into a vessel of the Almighty's grandeur. His thoughts raced with visions of lineage and legacy, the responsibility resting heavily yet profoundly upon his heart. The flickering flames cast shadows of hope upon his face, and the warmth from the fire became a canopy of divine love, nurturing his newfound faith. In the quietness, a voice broke through the hush, calling from beyond the flames. It was Nahor, Abraham's brother. His tone projected disbelief, charged with skepticism. "Abraham, hast thou not learned the folly of trusting in dreams? Who is this man that we should acknowledge him, upon whom the gods of Canaan have turned their backs?" A murmur swept through the assembly as those gathered glanced at Oren, who stood poised between doubt and faith. The camaraderie of the camp faded momentarily into a storm of uncertainty. Yet, it was in this tumult that Oren felt his resolve grow stronger. "Let not your hearts be troubled," Mila urged, standing beside Oren, her eyes glimmering with loyalty. "For the God of Abraham is a God of promise. His call is undeniable. Oren has chosen, and that choice shall not be cast aside." The elders exchanged glances filled with suspicion, pondering the implications of such an acceptance. But before they could deliberate, a stirring began to ripple through the camp. The very ground quaked subtly beneath their feet, as if creation itself responded to the weight of Oren's commitment. "Yeah," Abraham interjected, his voice rising with authority. "The Lord has spoken, and lo, it is written. My God has not faltered in his promise. To be called is to be molded, to be chosen is to walk in covenant. Shall we not accept the will of the Almighty in our midst? Oren straightened, his heart emboldened by the fierce support of Abraham and Milah. The shadow of Jericho of the festivals, the merriment began to fade in memory as he turned his gaze ahead. His path lay forward, illuminated by the divine grace that now enveloped him. Then came a whisper through the wind, soft yet clarion, as if the cosmos itself heralded the imminent destiny. The Lord shall bring forth a nation, and from this very moment, my people shall rise, seeking me in spirit and truth. And with that, the stars twinkled brighter still, filling the sky with a brilliance that seemed to echo the very heart of God. As the night deepened, Abraham drew Oren close. Remember this night, young one. Each step you take shall lead not only to your own salvation but to the birth of nations, to hearts yet unclaimed by true worship. The gods of your forefathers rest on shifting sands, but the God I serve, he is eternal, immutable. Oren nodded solemnly, his spirit ignited. With each word spoken, he understood the gravity of his decision. The night whispered of a journey long foretold, a pilgrimage toward the fulfillment of prophecy. Yet, as the camp settled into reverence, a shadow lingered in the distance, a hint of impending trials. Little did they know that the history of Canaan would test their resolve. For as the dawn approached, so too did the challenges that would reveal the faith of a new generation. Thus, as Oren stood among his new kin, enveloped in the mystery of God as promises, the heavens conspired to unveil a truth, that faith, once awakened, would challenge the very foundations of belief in gods that demanded sacrifice without mercy. What lay ahead remained a divine puzzle unfolding in the depths of time, a testimony waiting to break forth into the lives destined to follow the path of the covenant. As the first light of dawn painted the horizon, a hush fell over the camp, and with it came the responsibility of the morning. Oren rose early, sensing within his spirit the burdens he now carried. It was not merely for himself, but for the people who would follow him in faith, a nation yet unformed but birthed in the very promise of God. That he knelt once more, casting his gaze upwards, where the stars now faded against the awakening sky. Silence enveloped him, and he sought the voice of the Almighty, yearning for reassurance in the wake of doubt. O Lord, he murmured, reveal unto me thy will, for I am but a vessel. Lead me on this path, and let not my heart waver. The stillness was shattered by the call of an elder from the fringes of the camp. It was Nahor once again, his countenance heavy with skepticism. So, young Oren, dost thou still believe that the heavens speak unto thee? What of the gods of Canaan, who have long protected our ancestors? Dost thou wish to forsake them for naught? A spark of tension ignited within the group as heads turned. The elders, caught in a web of tradition and the new vision brought by Oren, exchanged cautious glances. Many still clung to the revered beliefs of their forefathers, envisioning tribulations should they abandon their ancestral gods. Speak not of forsaking, Nahor, Abraham interjected, his voice resonating with authority. For to follow the one true God is not to forsake, but to claim that which is eternally true. Oren is chosen not merely for himself, but as a beacon to manifest the Lord's glory. The gods of this place are but shadows, our God is light. At these words, a hush of reverence befell the crowd. The weight of Abraham's wisdom settled deep within their hearts, scratching at long-standing beliefs. Oren, emboldened by the support of his mentor, stepped forward. I do not seek to cast judgment upon the traditions of our fathers, he began, his voice steady. But I am compelled in spirit to embrace a covenant that promises life and hope, not merely for I but for many generations as yet unknown. The murmurs of doubt transformed into whispers of intrigue, the wind shifted, carrying with it a sense of expectation. With every word, Oren felt the mounting pressure of his calling intertwining with the fate of his people, igniting faith where there had been faltering, and then, as from the heavens themselves, a vision unfolded before him, a tapestry woven with strands of promise and sacrifice, where the hearts of men would turn not towards idols demanding tribute, but to grace flowing freely from the true God. Behold, the wind whispered through the trees, the land is ripe for harvest, but it must first be prepared. Will you not lend your hands to the work of the Lord? These words resonated across the assembly, stirring the hearts of those present. Yet Nahor's voice dragged forth the fear of the unknown. What if this path leads to ruin? What if forsaking our heritage brings upon us the wrath of the gods we once served? Fear not, Nahor, Mila's gentle voice spoke, quelling the unrest. If God is for us, who can stand against? Let us remember the stories of our forefathers, who trusted in the unseen and were not left desolate. Oren's call reflects the purpose of our king. As the sun broke fully over the horizon, casting golden rays upon the camp, Abraham gathered the clan. Hear me now, all who dwell in the shadows of doubt. This covenant will not only usher in a nation but will rewrite the very fabric of our future. The time draws near when true worship will rise from this place, and the hearts of men will be restored. Just then, a tremor rippled through the ground, marking the divine promise's own declaration. Light shone brighter, revealing a path unseen to those who clung merely to tradition. The moment swelled heavy with the weight of revelation. Individuals who once worshipped at altars of stone began to see visions of a faithful God revealing his sovereign plan, and as they stood on the precipice of this new dawn, Oren felt the stirring of ancient prophecies echo within him at dawn, heralding a future where faith would outshine the trappings of fallen idols. Little did they know the trials ahead would test not only their resolve but the very heart of their belief, leading to the fulfillment of a covenant that would shake the very foundations of nations. For amid doubt, longing, and emerging faith, a deeper truth lingered like a hidden treasure awaiting discovery, that from the shadows would rise the light of a covenant, the promise of the Almighty unveiling a magnificent plan for not just one, but many generations to come. In the wake of the morning's promise, as the camp buzzed with a blend of anticipation and uncertainty, Oren gathered the people to hear the words of his heart. Standing beneath the olive tree, its boughs swaying gently as if eager to impart their wisdom, he addressed the gathering with the fervor of a prophet. My brothers and sisters, he began, are we not called to greater things? The Almighty has placed within us a longing for his presence, a promise echoing from generation to generation. The people listened, their expressions a tapestry of hope and fear. Nahor, still harboring doubt, stepped forward, not to hinder but to question. And what shall we do, Oren? How shall we show the gods of the land that we have chosen to follow this unseen God? Are we to leave our altars? Will he protect us against those who do not share our faith? A murmur spread among the elders, their faces a blend of concern and curiosity, and from their midst, it was Mila who spoke, her voice unwavering. Our hearts must be open to his leading. God does not require us to abandon that which builds our faith, but rather to transform it. Let us remember the promises of old, when he delivered our forefathers from bondage, when they wandered and yet were guided. This God desires a relationship, not mere ritual. With each word from Mila, Oren felt the weight of the promise pressing upon him once more. We can build an altar of worship that honors him alone. In this act of faith, we shall find our identity, the identity of a chosen people, he proclaimed, the fire within him igniting further as the Spirit bore witness to his thoughts. Then, amid the contemplation, a hush fell suddenly, and the breath of the Almighty seemed to swirl through the leaves, causing all to pause. It was then that a radiant light broke through the canopy above, a shaft of silver illuminating the ground, flickering like a flame caught in the breeze. From within the radiant glow, a voice resounded, resonant and powerful, "My people, I have heard your cries and I shall not forsake you." An unseen force held each heart captive as they beheld the divine manifestation. "I have chosen you to be a light unto the nations. Fear not the gods of Canaan, they are but the work of human hands, a snare for the unwary. I am the creator of heaven and earth. My covenant stands firm, and through you, all shall see my glory." Trembling, Oren grasped the moment's gravity. "Lord," he interceded, "how shall we begin this holy work? What shall be our first step in this covenant?" "Gather unto me the willing," the voice instructed, "those who will tread this path of faith. For as they gather, their hearts shall become one. Through their unity, I shall pour forth my spirit, and they will rise as a mighty army." The light faded, but the imprint of the sacred moment melted the doubts of many. Nahor, with his brow furrowed, stood astonished. Could it be that we have ventured too long in shadows, seeking after phantoms? he pondered aloud. Yes, Mila interjected softly. Let us leave the past behind and look forward to the future that God reveals. We are at the dawn of an era, one that demands faith from the depths of our souls. As the people began to stir, a palpable excitement coursed through them, an awakening to their identity. They began to gather stones and twigs, talking and laughing as they prepared to build their first altar, not of stone and earth but of hearts united in unshakable faith. Yet, amid this flurry of hope, an undercurrent of uncertainty remained, as shadows danced in the corners of minds. Oren turned inward, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. His heart echoed a prophetic whisper, but what of the trials to come? What of the land that holds darkness and the enemies who stand against us? As they worked, the sun began its descent, casting long shadows over the camp. The spirit of unity resonated, yet the challenge of faith loomed over them, waiting to test the very foundation of their beliefs. Would they stand united when faced with the storms of doubt, or would the wavering hearts be overcome? And so it was. That the Lord, in His goodness and mercy, continued to weave His plan throughout the tapestry of their journey, a plan that would encompass not just deliverance, but an awakening that would shape the destiny of nations, for in the hands of the Almighty lay not just a promise but the fulfillment of a covenant that beckoned to the faithful. Would they rise to usher in the dawn of a new nation, or would they falter in the face of adversity? The winds whispered gently among the branches, and the heavens held their breath, awaiting the unfolding story of God's miraculous design. As the day drew to a close, the encampment radiated with excitement, yet, within Oren's heart, a tumult brewed. He felt an urgency pressing upon him, a divine imperative revealing the struggle between faith and fear. The remnants of the sunset cast fiery hues across the horizon, painting the sky in vivid colors akin to the splendor of God's promises. Gathering the people once more, Oren lifted his voice above the evening murmurs, declaring, "Let us set our hearts upon the Lord, for the altar we build is not of mere stones but of our very souls, dedicated to the one true God. We must be vigilant, for adversaries lie in wait, those who would stir doubts within us." At the mention of enemies, a shiver coursed through the assembly. The memory of fearsome giants in the land the Canaanites echoed in their minds. They understood that these, too, were the deities they would have to contend against, gods crafted by human hands, conceived in darkness. In the days of our forefathers, Mila spoke, her voice calm amidst the storm of awaiting fears, "The Lord has delivered us through waters of despair, and He shall do so again. Cast your burdens upon Him, let not the fears of this land ensnare your faith." As she finished, Oren saw the shifting expressions among his people. Doubt flickered but was met with a rising tide of courage. He realized that God was at work in their hearts, transforming their fears into a shared faith. Then, out of the center of the assembly, a young boy, Eli, raised his small hands. "Will He not fight for us? Will our God not defend us against the foes that tower like mountains?" His innocent spirit echoed the very questions stirring in Oren's soul. With renewed vigor, Oren replied, "The Lord shall go before us, as a mighty warrior, and we shall not falter. He has promised us victory, not through might, but through faith that moves mountains." He tells us in Zechariah 4 verse 6, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts." As night settled over the camp, the stars glittered above like countless eyes witnessing the sacred moment unfolding. Oren beckoned the people to draw closer, to unify in prayer as they would unify in battle. "Let us intercede together. For even now, the strongholds of Canaan shudder at our unity." With one accord, they fell to their knees, murmuring prayers of hope and deliverance. Oren's heart soared, rising above the anxieties of the moment. As their voices blended into a harmonious plea, the night seemed to thrum with the promise of the Lord's presence. Suddenly, a flicker of light appeared, a small flame igniting upon the altar they had built with their hands and hearts. The fire danced with divine purpose, consuming the offerings of their faith. Breathless, they watched as it flickered, revealing shadows that danced in rhythm with their supplications. "Great are you, O God!" they proclaimed, emboldened. "Lead us through these trials." Their unity rang like a clarion call in the heavens, summoning the Lord's attention. Yet, amid their fervent prayers, a whisper wound through the air, a haunting reminder, like a shadow over their flames. Remember the words of Jeroboam, who led the tribes into idolatry. The land holds many gods, and their worship will not cease without a struggle. Oren felt the weight of this warning, the fragility of their resolve. What trials lay ahead for a people striving to honor the one who transcends both earth and sky? He understood then that their faith would be tested not merely in their reliance on God as promises, but through the allure and fear of the gods that once held sway over their forebears. His heart raced as he contemplated their reality. Lord, he whispered within, what must we overcome to fulfill your calling to rise as your light upon this darkened land? And as the flickering flame burned brightly, a new thought seized him, carrying both dread and a trembling thrill. In every flame of faith flickers a shadow of the battle to come. What would they unleash when they faced Canaanite gods? Thus, with every heartbeat, the solemn assurance prepared them for their destiny. The dawn was indeed a new beginning, but the path was fraught with shadows, awaiting their brave steps towards the unfolding tapestry of God's sovereign plan. The dawn broke over the encampment, casting a gentle light upon the weary faces gathered beneath the heavens. Oren stood upon a risen rock, high above the still slumbering assembly, his spirit ignited with the fervor of a prophetic call. Awake, O Israel! The Lord your God stirs within us, and his purpose shall not be carried out in shadows. This day, we confront the very heart of the Canaanites, their gods and their defiance. The people stirred, their eyes widening with hope and fear alike. As Oren spoke, he recalled how their forefathers had struggled against the tangled web of despair. He understood now the timeless cycle of faith their history unveiled, moments of glory amidst trials, battles won not in their strength, but in reliance upon the Almighty. Gather your courage, for the Lord has said through his prophet, you shall not bow to their gods, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but you shall utterly overthrow them and completely break down their sacred pillars. Exodus 23 verse 24. His voice rang with conviction, echoing in the vastness like the thunder of divinity. Mila approached, her countenance alight with purpose. Oren, we must map the land ahead. The Canaanites are not but mere mortals, their gods cloak themselves in enticing allure. They beckon with promises that ensnare the hearts of men. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, anticipation igniting a spark within. Oren gestured towards the hills that surrounded them, their peaks standing like guardians shrouded in a veil of mist. Then let us prepare. Let us send forth humble emissaries to scout the land. We shall witness the dominion God has entrusted us. As the dawn ascended, one man stepped forth, Javan, a mighty warrior in stature and spirit. I will go, Oren. I will tread upon the land of our inheritance and return with news of our enemies. With the Lord as our shield and fortress, I shall not be afraid. The assembly erupted in a chorus of yes. Propelled by a newfound fervor, Oren felt the Holy Spirit resonate within him. He called upon them, send forth others. Let us raise our voices in prayer, for he shall guide our paths and grant us wisdom. As they united in fervent prayer, the flame upon their altar blazed higher, seemingly fed by the very essence of their faith. God was moving among his people, preparing them for the fierce clash that lay on the horizon. The names of Canaan's gods echoed in Oren's mind: Baal, Asherah, Moloch, deceptive deities revered for their power and fertility, summoned with sacrifices that turned the heart towards darkness. As the hours passed, Javan gathered men willing to accompany him, selecting those strong in faith and able in heart. Among them was Eli, the young boy whose faith had pierced Oren's heart. Let me go, cried Eli, eyes shining. I wish to see what wonders God will do. Your spirit is noble, Eli, Oren replied, marveling at the purity of the boy's faith. But what you seek shall challenge your heart. The path is fraught with danger. I shall not falter. Eli's voice rang clear, and Oren was filled with a sense of destiny that entwined their souls. And so the men departed, hearts ablaze with the promise of the Lord's guidance, each step into the unknown echoing the path of Joshua. As they journeyed, Oren remained behind, praying over them and calling forth God's blessings. As dusk settled once again, the remaining assembly gathered in expectation. The time of testing was near. They had begun to step into the narrative of their ancestors, the very lineage chosen by Jehovah. Yet, in the stillness that fell upon the camp, Oren sensed a different kind of challenge, a stirring against the fabric of their resolve. He remembered Ezekiel's words, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Ezekiel 37 verse 3. With each hour, the tension began to mount. The gods of Canaan were not idle, and Oren knew all too well that the resistance would be fierce. For God's flame flickering within their hearts was meant to shine forth against the backdrop of shadows, to reveal his sovereign plan charted from the ages. But what secrets lay hidden in the land of Canaan? What awaited the brave souls who marched forth in faith? As the starlight sparkled overhead, the stage was set for a divine showdown, a clash not just of flesh, but of the very powers that ruled the earth. Thus Oren knelt beneath the twinkling firmament, pouring out his soul in deep urgency, wondering if this journey would lead them closer to the promise or draw them into deeper strife. The dawn had drawn them forth, but the true journey was yet to unfold, with mysteries of heaven and earth intertwined. As the moon hung like a silver shield in the expanse of the night, Oren rose from his knees, strengthened by the fervent prayers of his heart. He sensed a stirring, as if the very air around him breathed mysteries untold. The assembly, although dwindling in number, sensed the weight of divine anticipation that in the early hours before dawn, whispers moved through the camp like a soft wind. The fire cast long shadows, dancing over the faces of those who remained. Oren called upon Mila and she approached him, her expression one of both concern and resolve. "What weighs upon you, Oren? The night is thick with uncertainty, and I fear for those who have ventured forth." "Indeed, Mila," he replied, his gaze fixed upon the horizon where darkness still reigned. "I feel the pull of forces unseen and awakening of the ancient gods of Canaan. Their power dwells on deceit, and they will not yield their stronghold easily." Mila steeled her heart. "Then we must prepare ourselves not just for battle against flesh and bone, but for spiritual warfare. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds." 2 Corinthians 10 verse 4. As they shared wisdom, restlessness swept through the remaining assembly. The gathered families began to murmur, voices rising like incense in prayer. Oren raised his hands, quieting them. "Brothers and sisters, take heart. God is with us, even in the stillness before the storm. For it is within the waiting that we learn the fullness of trust." Before the sun kissed the horizon, Eli returned, breathless and wide-eyed of spirit. "Oren. Great news from the land. The Canaanites gather, and their king, a fierce warrior named Adonizedek, prepares for war. He has summoned the priests of Baal and of Asherah. I saw their altars, their sacrifices reek of desperation." A gasp rippled through the quiet crowd, and Oren felt the unmistakable hand of God at work. "Prepare yourselves. This is not merely a confrontation of armies, but a display of who is truly God. Their attempts to fortify against us will become their folly, as has been spoken, for the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds." 2 Corinthians 10 verse 4. With urgency, Oren gathered the assembly, declaring unity over their mission. "Those who seek our destruction seek to bind us with fear, yet the Lord our God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. The people lifted their voices in a chorus of affirmation, hearts ignited with divine courage. As they spoke the truth of Scripture, the atmosphere shifted. It seemed as if the heavens responded. Clouds accumulated on the horizon, dark and heavy. Oren felt the stirrings of the spiritual realm, a manifestation of the conflict looming ahead. This storm may reflect the tumult we will encounter, but remember, God rains blessings upon His chosen, even amidst the storm. As the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the camp, Oren knelt once more, seeking divine guidance. "Lord of hosts," he prayed, "cause your light to shine through our actions, that the Canaanites may see the truth of your word. Let their gods fall silent, and let your name be glorified." Hours passed, and the assembly readied itself, voices rising in prayer. Suddenly, a figure appeared atop a distant hill, Javan, leading their brethren back to the camp with urgency, his face marked with both apprehension and revelation. There is more, Oren. We encountered a sorceress, one who speaks of the old ways and knowings. She knows the secrets of the gods, the dark pact that binds their power. She comes bearing warning, a path not taken before can lead to our victory. We must listen to her insight. The assembly fell into hushed expectancy, apprehension mingling with curiosity. What would this sorceress reveal? Would her knowledge lead them to victory or bind them further into darkness? As they gathered closer, the weight of divine destiny loomed over them all, an invitation to divine revelation. The morning light twinkled with promise, illuminating their path while questions echoed in their hearts. What lies ahead as the clash of gods draws near? How will the name of the Lord be glorified in this struggle? For even now, a deeper mystery entangles the fates of the faithful. As the sun ascended, casting its golden rays upon the assembly, the tension in the air transformed into a palpable anticipation. Oren stood resolute, his heart beating in rhythm with the fervent prayers of his people. The sorceress approached, a woman draped in dark fabric that shimmered like starlit waters, her eyes bright with sacred knowledge. "Is it true, Oren," she spoke, her voice a mix of wisdom and foreboding, "that your God desires to confront the ancient ones of this land?" With a firm nod, he replied, "It is the will of the Lord. He is intent on revealing his glory before all nations. Speak, then, of that which you know, for we are in desperate need of guidance." Her gaze swept over the gathered assembly, sensing their earnest desire for truth. The gods of Canaan are fierce, bound to the hearts of men through fear and deception. They have woven a covenant of blood with their worshippers, ensuring loyalty through terror. But beneath their facade of power lies vulnerability, a crack through which your God may strike. Whispers rippled through the crowd, hearts quickening as she continued. The key lies in the very altars where their sacrifices are made. The priests of Baal and Asherah practice rites steeped in darkness, invoking powers from the abyss. Seek out their strongholds, and you shall unveil the chains that bind them. For it is written, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." John 8 verse 32. A murmur of recognition passed among the people, many recalled the warnings of the prophets about the snares of idolatry. Oren, emboldened by her words, encouraged them, "Then let us prepare, for our confrontation will not be merely of blades but of spirit." Eli stepped forward, a puzzled look crossing his face. "But Oren, if the Canaanites invoke such dark powers, how can we mere mortals stand against them?" With unyielding certainty, Oren lifted his voice, "In our weakness, his strength is made perfect." 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9. The battle is not ours alone, but the Lord's. He has called us to stand firm, clothed in the armor of God, ready to resist the wiles of the enemy. Ephesians 6 verse 11. As Oren spoke, the sorceress nodded, her expression softening. "Indeed, your faith can shatter the chains imposed by these ancient entities. Know this, fear is their greatest weapon, but perfect love casts out fear." 1 John 4 verse 18. The assembly united in fervent prayer, their voices rising in harmony, intertwining their pleadings with the faith that enveloped them. Oren sensed the shift in the atmosphere. The spirit of fear began to dissipate, giving way to a boldness that echoed through the camp like the sound of a trumpet. Suddenly, a great wind surged over the lands, bending the trees, as if the very breath of God flowed among them. The sorceress stepped back, eyes wide. The gods tremble at his presence. Your God approaches with might. In that moment, Oren's heart filled with prophetic urgency. Then let us march towards the altars, let us challenge the darkness. We shall lift our voices in praise, declaring the might of our God, and in our worship, they shall fall. The assembly rallied together, their resolve firm, moving as one towards the Canaanite strongholds, but as they advanced, a silence fell over the land. The shadows stretched unnaturally long, an unnatural stillness descended, a sign of the stirrings of unseen forces. What awaited them in the shadow of the altars? Would their faith withstand the fervor of an ancient wrath? For even now, whispers of divine providence hid within the hearts of those who dared to march forward, an unfolding of God's sovereign plan that yet lay shrouded in mystery. Would the truth of the Lord triumph over the lies of Canaan, or would the darkness veil even their brightest hopes? And so it came to pass, as the sun rose high above the Canaanite strongholds, illuminating the path of faith upon which Oren and his people trod. They marched with resolute hearts, a procession of hope and courage bearing witness to their newfound devotion. Pride and fear clashed within many, but the power of belief in the one true God stirred within them, propelling them to confront the shadows that loomed over the altars of Baal and Asherah. Oren led the procession, fortified by the voices of his kin Mila, Javan, and the young Eli among them, steadfast in their purpose. Onward, he called. This day we shall not bring forth our swords but our praises. For the Lord, our God, is the mighty warrior, and with him, we stand unshaken. The air crackled with divine anticipation, setting their hearts ablaze with confidence in the face of impending trials. As they approached the altars, a hush fell over the land, a collective breath held tight as if the very earth sensed their declaration. The symbols of false gods rose before them, an edifice of stone representing the fear and oppression that had bound their ancestors. Dark symbols twisted across the altars, reflecting the cries of those who worshipped in ignorance, seeking power through sacrifice rather than freedom through grace. In that moment, Oren raised his arms, and as if in response, the skies darkened with a supernatural gathering, the heavens poised to witness a battle not merely of flesh but of spirit. Hear me, O gods of Canaan! He shouted, his voice soaring above the intense silence. You have held sway over these people through deceit and terror, but today, we proclaim the truth of the Most High. Your reign is over, the Lord God of Abraham has come to set his people free. The ground trembled beneath their feet again, an echo of both their resolve and the challenge laid before the very powers that had oppressing Canaan for generations. Quiet murmurs of uncertainty began to ripple through the gathered followers, yet in that moment, Eli stepped forth, his small hand outstretched. Will you not fall before him who is greater? The spellbinding atmosphere shifted as their faith ignited the air. Elation merged with trembling fear, but also a sense of immutable resolve. Javan spoke up, his voice steady and powerful. Fear not the altar of darkness. Its strength is but a mirage, built upon the backs of souls lost to despair. With our God, we declare victory. As he finished his statement, an uncanny wind began to swirl, wrapping around the assembly like a protective embrace, lifting their spirits and solidifying their foundation of unity. Oren understood they were at the cusp of divine intervention, a moment marked with destiny as the ancient gods recoiled against the gathering storm of faith. Suddenly, from the stone heights emerged the priests of Baal, adorned in flowing robes, their faces contorted with fury and mockery. Foolish mortals! They sneered, their voices laced with disdain. You dare challenge the very gods that sustain this land? You will know the wrath of Baal. But Oren felt empowerment rise against every ounce of doubt. We serve not mere idols, but the living God. He proclaimed. Our faith is not a weapon against flesh, but against the strongholds that keep you shackled. You have no power over those whom the Lord has redeemed. As the priests advanced, prepared to call upon their dark powers, Mila stepped forward beside Oren. Our worship is our battle. Let us sing songs of deliverance. Let it ring forth into the heavens. And so, they began to praise, their voices rising like a tempest, a chorus of hope to drown out fear. The melody wove through the air, uplifting their spirits as they invoked the name of the Almighty. Great are you, Lord. Mighty in battle, our refuge and strength. We stand united, declaring your glory. The aura shifted violently, and the priests staggered back in confusion. Shadows darted as the sky roared to life, the very presence of God manifesting over them in waves. Your chants will not lift you from darkness. They howled, desperate as the earth began to rumble beneath the weight of conviction, but Oren, emboldened, drew closer to the altar, eyes steady upon the idols carved there. Whose goodness have you sought? He demanded, his voice now a thunderclap infused with righteous fury. Your blood offerings will not sway the one who is life. For we shall restore the land not through sacrifice to idols but through the power of faith. As echoes of their praise resonated within the tribal regions, the very heavens began to respond. A blinding flash shot forth from the skies, striking the altar of Baal. The stones quaked as the mighty hand of God dispelled the darkness, the shattered pieces of the idols scattered across the ground, a reign of divine justice marking their demise. "Look!" Oren cried, pointing towards the remnants of what was once a symbol of despair. "The God of stone cannot stand firm against the living God. You are no more, for he reigns eternal." In that moment, the miraculous unfolded a resolute witness to all of Canaan. The priests fell to their knees, dread plastered upon their faces as fear of the Almighty thundered through their souls. The people of Canaan, witnesses to the power revealed, began to gather, faces turned towards the unfailing light of hope that Oren and his followers radiated. As the dust settled upon the desecrated altars, the crowd erupted in a chorus, voices lifted high to the heavens. "Our God reigns. Our God saves." Oren felt the depth of joy rush through him, the profound reminder that their journey had not been in vain. His heart was resolute. Every trial had been for this culmination a moment where faith's triumph overshadowed despair, signaling the dawning of a new nation, and thus, the remnants of Canaan witnessed history forged in faith, as the light of truth began to illuminate the darkness that had long chained them. Oren raised his hands to the heavens, grateful for the divine orchestration that had led them to this triumphant hour. "We shall rise as a people of his promise." With every heart emboldened to follow, they stepped forth to embrace their new covenant, forever changed, forever faithful in the name of the Lord. As the journey to freedom and faith continued, darkness no longer held sway. The land would bear the mark of promise, a testimony of the victory born not through the might of man but through the faithfulness of the living God, whose sovereignty fulfilled his divine plan throughout generations. May we, like Oren and his people, embrace the spirit of faith that casts away fear and doubt. We are called to trust in the God who creates paths in the wilderness and rivers in the desert, to declare his truth boldly when the world beckons us to bow before idols. Now, dear friends, as we reflect on the faithfulness of our God, I urge you, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that resonate with our journey in faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, allowing the truth to reach hearts eager for revelation. Comment your own spiritual reflections and how this powerful story of Oren impacted your faith. Your voice matters and can inspire those around you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth, for this is the moment to help spread biblical truth and witness the amazing work of the Lord in our lives. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Together, let us usher in God's light into the lives of many.